And welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Plek. I'm so glad all of you are joining us. And joining me in studio once again is none other than one of Round Rock's finest, Robert Huddleston. Welcome
Howdy.
back. And then also with us is Heather Obermiller. She is an explorer of spiritual things. And I think that's a good way to put that.
Yeah, that's actually really accurate.
Yeah. She's not wrestling with anything. No. She's exploring things. And so we're so glad to have her back. And what's been really fun is that you've gotten two, this might be a first. Like usually when I have guests come on and I go, hey, if you have any questions for our guest, ask them and they'll bring that specific person back and they'll answer them and I get 0, but I got 2. So this means
famous.
Famous.
Podcast famous.
I'll try not to let it go to my head.
Yeah, there it is. You can already see your head being blown up.
All right.
And so here it is if you're ready. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Question for Heather Obermiller. If you believe there is good and bad, moral and immoral, who decides which is which? Does that line shift with time?
I love this question. Thank you for whoever sent this, because this is really great. I'm happy that I have an excuse to talk about this. I don't believe that there is a good or a bad, or a right or a wrong. So we'll just put that out there.
Yeah, so that makes it very difficult to even go on with the line of thinking. So it's what you said last time was you do what's best for you. That your morality is in the context, it's selfishness, but the way you view selfishness, me helping other people will in turn help myself because I feel good when I help somebody else. It will, if you want us to go with karma, but we won't use karma, a different word that's like karma.
Karma adjacent.
What goes around comes around, and eventually when I'm good to other people, they'll be good to me, and I'm looking out for me, right? And this is where...
That's why I'm still trying to contemplate that. Like, I'm a little blown away. I'm ready to see where this goes.
Yeah, because
I'm a little shook. I'm like, wait, there's no good or bad?
There's no good or bad. So what that means is Hitler... or Stalin, or Pol Pot, or pick your favorite public official who everyone hates, and then you are going to go. That person was just doing what was right for him, and what the problem with that is doing what's right for him because he doesn't subscribe to. I'm going to be really sweet to all these people, so they'll be sweet to me. I think that's what's hard about that line of thinking is it comes off as, and this is where it's beautiful in its naivete, some might say, like that's really sweet. Oh, she's in the open field. There's butterflies and there are flowers, rainbows, and there are blue bonnets and there's candy cane cupcakes everywhere. But the reality is there's bad people, and people are basically awful, cruel humans left to their own devices without law will murder each other until they're to oblivion, to which you're like, hey, people aren't anything anyway, so you did them a favor. You ended their short existence and you just kind of got to the end a little bit quicker, and they're not feeling anything now.
That's still wild.
I think that the best way to tackle it, because you bring up a lot of really good points.
Yeah.
Like, Hitler was a bad person.
Sure.
He murdered millions of people.
But you said he was bad.
So you have to take a step back.
Let's take a step back.
Let's
put the 6 million people over here out of their graves for a moment, and let's just take a step back. Go ahead.
So when you think about good, bad, right, wrong, you have to compare it to some sort of universal good, universal bad, and you get categorized into, well, based on what this guy said, this guy was bad, and based on what this guy said, this guy was good. I don't believe that there is a standard in the universe that decides for us that our actions or our words are good, are bad, are right, or wrong.
So you don't think there's anything that's always right or something that's always wrong? So I'm going to throw this out here. So there's an old lady crossing the street, and I'm like, 5 points. And I drill her, and I feel good about it. And I'm like, and I keep moving, and I go, hey, and I put my 5 points on my windshield. You would go, that was his choice. Or you might go, that person needs to go to a mental hospital and the society needs to be protected from him, right?
So I love that. That's what you used. Society.
Yeah.
society decides what's good and bad. I don't believe in a God that tells me what is good and what is bad. And that changes by society. In a lot of different cultures, eating dog is pretty frowned upon. Mm-hmm. But in others, it's not. And, this obviously isn't getting chalked up to like genocide. But when you look at it on like either the really, really big or the really, really small, like I'm not going to eat a dog because my society tells me that that's bad. But a different society has a completely different view on it. They think that it's fine.
Sure.
So which one's the right answer? There isn't one. Neither of us are in the wrong because we grow up and learn our morals in the society that we were born into, that we live in.
So, but I guess I would go, so societies that like eat people, cannibalism, you would go, that's their choice. That's the societal norm.
I don't want to go out on the great big wide internet and say that I condone cannibalism.
Yeah.
But it does sound like you're kind of like a live and let live. Like if there's
laissez-faire.
Yeah, and that.
Which I appreciate for economics.
Because when I was more atheistic in my beliefs, I always thought that, sure, we know good and wrong because it's just, evolutionarily speaking, we understand somewhere in our brain that helping others progresses society.
Right.
And all these things like, can we eat people? Can we eat dogs? All that stuff is society stuff, and that stuff doesn't matter. The essential is like hurting people, causing pain, stealing. Those are the real moral questions. Like, and I always thought, well, evolutionary speaking, if I help other caveman and other caveman help me caveman good, we live. You know, like it was that like, and so like other people, you see that and then you evolve and then that's just good. But even then, like that love, that idea, like this is wrong. I feel bad about this. I feel comes from someone and comes from God, and those feelings come from there. That like I can't understand it not mattering. You know, like there is no good and evil. Like there is. I feel like there is. We know somewhere in our core, like that's good. And we know somewhere in our core, like that's not good.
Because this is what the problem with, I think, the idea that you're saying of society decides, is society decided that killing off Jews was okay. Society decided that killing off anyone who disagreed with Pol Pot was okay. Society decided, society decided, and it all took one person to influence the society. The society was influenced by a bunch of people who took Jesus and crucified him. Like I think there's a lot of societal things that are probably not great, and society decided that slavery was okay. I feel like there's a lot of things there that you would go, societal norm was what was best for everyone is what got everybody along, except for a majority of the people weren't taken care of. And it was a rule of the few over the many, and that becomes problematic. So that's where I feel like the societal argument, not that, again, I feel like I appreciate because I feel like you come at it from like I'm not here to advocate, murdering millions of people. I'm here to just say, like, listen, why does anyone have to tell anybody what to do? Which I can appreciate that. I think that's where your heart is. I think the problem with that view is it ends up being at a place where it's kind of like when Google's model was, you remember motto or slogan was, "Don't be evil." Yes. What it did was set the bar so low. Right? I mean, it's like our goal here is not be evil. And it was kind of like, it's don't being evil it sounds way more catchier than do the most good, right? Mm-hmm. Like it sounds like the Salvation Army, do the most good. Google, don't be evil. There's churches that actually have this like, we will do everything short of sin to reach people. I'm like, why is sin the bar? Why
Goodness.
Even, like what is that about? Like we want to love God so much to have people fall in love with the way we're falling in love with God that they just want to go, I want whatever it is that you have. Like that, whatever, maybe that just takes too long to say. But I guess my point is, what happens, I think, eventually is that you get to a place where the philosophy is going to affect people on a grander scale, and it has to have some overarching reason that has some objective point of view, or else it's subjective to the whim of the one who can convince the many.
I'm letting it simmer.
that's a lot of
I'm letting it
process.
stew. It's a slow cooker in here.
Yeah, cook that a little bit. Yeah.
So, okay. It's a big question mark where I guess I get the definition of good and bad from.
Okay,
It's up there.
Okay.
For you, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Please do.
You get your standard from God.
Yes.
And, he decides this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is good, this is bad.
Yes.
And, do the good, do the right, get into heaven.
Yeah. Yes.
There's something there in that idea that does not click in my brain, that I have to listen to somebody that I've never met to tell me that what I'm doing is right. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
sure.
You want more control, more...
Exactly. And
or
I think
relationship is what you're
I think
saying.
that you and I spoke about this
Yeah.
really briefly last week. I do not want to, it goes back into like the whole free will conversation, and like I don't want to surrender my agency in my decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't believe that God wrote my story and that I am just following it out the way that he did, because that means that I am not the one that's actually deciding what I'm doing.
You're not the captain of your own ship.
Exactly. And it definitely goes back to this whole selfish thing that we talked about last week
Right.
of I do it for me. And if what's in my heart says that it's good, then I'm going to believe that it's good. You have to go further back in that and say, this is the big question, is how did I decide what's good?
Right.
And that's the hardest question to answer, because everything in my 24 years told me what's good and what's bad. And then I had to step back from that and say, okay, well, that's just from my perspective of like me, a girl growing up in North Texas.
Or remember that, or not remember, it's like the song that's like just came out. It's about the dude in Cleveland or whatever who made up Victoria's Secret and made up, have you heard this song?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, let me pull it up. Like, it's like, this girl has like this eating disorder because of some dude who came up with Victoria's Secret and made all these models be super skinny. And so it affected good and bad, beauty and ugly was based upon something that was unrealistic because it became a, what's called airbrushed picture. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, let me see if I can find, like, keep talking, I'll find that
I
picture.
didn't know that we were going to have a jam session.
Well, yeah, I mean.
No, it's just, it's hard to pin down. I think that just as you have confidence and faith in your God that you're on the right track, I have confidence and faith in myself that the decisions that I make are the best ones that I can.
Yeah.
So as you have faith in God, I have faith in me, and it is selfish, but I think that that's one of the most important things that we can do as humans is, trust in ourselves. The one person that you're going to be stuck with for your entire life, it's not going to be your parents or your sisters or your partner. It's going to be yourself.
Yeah.
And you should be pretty darn comfortable with what's going on up here.
Well, I think most people aren't. Here's why. It's the song's called Victoria's Secret by Jax. And it goes like this: God, I wish somebody would have told me when I was younger that all bodies aren't the same. Photoshop itty bitty models on magazine covers told me I was overweight. I stopped eating. What a bummer. Can't have carbs in a hot girl summer. If I could go back and tell myself when I was younger, I'd say, psst, I know Victoria's Secret, and girl, you wouldn't believe it. She's an old man who lives in Ohio making money off girls like me. Cashing on body issues, selling skin and bones with big boobs. I know Victoria's Secret. She was made up by a dude. Victoria was made up by a dude. Victoria's made up by a dude. So I think that's the sort of the thing, is that what happens when there's not an objective reality that's above humanity, then some guy in Ohio who has some fetish for skinny girls with big boobs then gets to determine right and wrong for an entire generation of women who are now like self-loathing to a point of like absolute hatred of themselves because they don't measure up to some picture.
Well, you do believe in a higher power, and all of that stuff did still happen, right?
What do you mean?
Like, even if there isn't a higher power and there isn't anything dictating, like, yeah, that's good, that's bad, that's right, that's wrong.
Sure.
Even, like, you still believe that. And this guy still went out and did it, and so that was wrong. I mean, like, I definitely think that that's wrong. I've been, a woman before. I'm fairly familiar.
Do you know anything about this woman thing?
I'm a little bit. I have some experience in that field of being female. But I don't know, like that was definitely wrong. I mean, you shouldn't be telling women like what they're supposed to look like. You shouldn't be telling anybody
But why
what they're
not
supposed
if
to
there
look
is
like.
no objective?
So
You're just creating
that's actually a really good question, and I think that I actually have kind of an answer for you
good.
for that.
Here we go.
So
Because it's self-benefiting him.
Yeah.
it is. Why you shouldn't do that, and taking religion, God, all of that out of it, when you look at it from my point of view, is all we have in this world is this. I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't think that we have a purpose. Honest to God, honest to gosh, I guess.
Honest to myself.
Yeah, there you go.
Honest to Heather.
me. Yeah.
Oh gosh, you're gonna make me lose my train of thought. Like I don't. This is all we get, right? You are given your body, and you're given your voice, and you're given your thoughts, and you're given the world, and there's nothing more to that. And so there should be nothing on this planet that hinders you from being. Like there shouldn't be some dude in Ohio making a lingerie company that tells women what they're supposed to look like, because women look like so many different things. I think it goes back to like my views on nature and how we should not hinder it as much as possible. Like we obviously need to live on this planet, but I think that there is a line that we have surely crossed of getting too far into changing nature, into changing what is already there for our like ultimate benefit. And for that, for, a lot of men, for dudes in their basements in Ohio, it's looking at beautiful women in really nice underwear. And that is going too far against nature, because women don't really look like that. Like that's where the wrong comes in. I think maybe this is me figuring it out literally as I'm saying it. It's based in nature, and you should try not to change nature, because this is it.
So that, okay.
I hope that answers at least a little bit of your question.
It does bring out a morality that you said is objective, that is like, we should treat people with human dignity because they're natural humans. The only problem with that is now you've created a morality.
Rats.
Yeah. So that's the hard part of it, is that, because I agree with you. I'm like, everything is, yeah, preach it, girl. Human dignity. Every human being has great value. God loves people because they are imagers of him. The hard part is, though, when I say don't hurt them, don't tell them that they should conform their bodies to an image of some freak in Ohio. We need to have them be free to be who God created them, or be free to live out what was given to them by nature. Fine, I'll go there with you. Whatever happens is you're still giving a don't do this. A law came out of that. And I think that's what's a struggle, is you're eventually going to come up with law. Every time when you're wanting to, which is where John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, natural law is what you're going back to from 1700s kind of thought process, or 1600s to 1700s. Like that's where your reality comes out. You're looking at it and you're going like, how can people live out their individuality within a society? And that's the cream of Western law. I mean, you're really getting to like, let's go to law school, and I'll see you at Harvard, and we're gonna go talk about that, because we're gonna get into what is inalienable rights, what is freedom, who decides that, and even like this is where even people who are that disagreed on who God was, like Thomas Jefferson wasn't exactly a Christian. He was like a theist at best. But he came down with inalienable rights given by God. And I think that's what's hard, because no matter what, you're eventually going to come up with a law that you think is best for all people, and then you've got to ascribe that to someone greater than yourself. And I think now the cool way to put it's the universe. The universe has decided. Well, the problem is the universe hasn't done a very good job of communicating. The universe gives you all a lot of mystical feelings, as opposed to a codified, written out thing that says here's right and here's wrong. And I think that's super confusing, and to which this is why I'd say that's why I love the Judeo-Christian ethic, is because it has been revealed among men in a way that's palpable and understandable, so that you're not just taking a random standard, but something that's been vetted over the centuries. So I think that's where I go.
Simmering.
Simmer. Let that stew.
I think that where my thought process on it goes is, I'm going to see if I can articulate this the most graceful way that I can. I would rather, because I mean, you're right. At one point,
Sure.
there has to be a standard, and I don't think that God is setting that standard, but there should be something, and not everybody's going to follow that standard. And so where's the line of, that was good, that was bad, whatever. I would rather live not knowing where that line is, where that standard is, and having faith in myself and in others to find it for them. I would rather do that and be uncomfortable with that than believe in God and get the answers. Because there's not enough going for believing in God that is gonna bring me more comfort than just the absolute chaos of the universe's standard. Does that make sense? Like both of those options are not solidified answers for me, because I don't believe in God. And even if he does give a solid standpoint of, here is what's good, here's what's bad, I still forego having that answer on purpose because of everything else that has to come with getting those answers. I think there was a quote, and I really hope I don't butcher this: I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Like, I would rather go through life continuing to ask and be curious and be wrong than get all of the answers but still not be completely solidified in where those answers come from.
So I think is that what, Ray Bradbury? Is
that who it is?
I would rather have questions that can't be answered than questions that can't be questions that can't be questions, or answers that can't be questioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you can say like, oh, God said this, God said that, and I would say, okay, but why? Like, really? Did he? And I can't ever go against that. I just feel boxed
treat
in.
others the way you want to be treated. Like with morality, it's how I explain it to my 6-year-old. Because she's 6 and it's complicated and life is complicated. But treat others the way you want to be treated. Baby, do you like it when your brother takes your toy? No, don't take his toy. Do you like it when the boy yells at you? No, well, then that's why you shouldn't yell. And maybe it's just the dad in me that I just simplify things to that umpteenth degree.
Right.
But should you hurt other people? Only if you think it's okay for them to hurt you under the same circumstances. And I think any sane person is usually going to be like, no, I don't think that's okay. And so I think morality is just that simple. It's the golden rule.
I was actually thinking about the golden rule a lot for this past week because we talked about selfishness last week.
Yeah.
And when you go to the golden rule of treat others like you want to be treated, the first thing that you have to do is think, well, how would that make me feel? That's kind of a selfish thought because you have to compare it to yourself and you say, okay, well, that's what I would want. So then, yeah, I'm going to go do that for somebody else. I think it starts selfish and then it ends like not selfish. Does that make sense? And I follow the golden rule. Like I absolutely do. There are a million things that I do every day that I think, well, I would kind of hate that if somebody did that to me. So I won't. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. But I think this is what's beautiful about the golden rule. Let's say we all go, we're down with the golden rule. We all believe in the golden rule. How is it possible that 3 different people from different backgrounds all can come and go, yes? That's what I'm saying. It's like that is, and maybe you'd say, well, Chris, we're all from the same basic society, so that's why that works. And I would say, well, maybe, but like, I don't know. Like I would get to where you're getting, not from the standpoint of my, my own selfishness. I get there from a view of God, how God calls me to treat others, but still it ends up in the same spot. And so that's where I feel like the objective reality or objective law because we're all going to come to law at some point. It's just where is that law and who defines it? And that's why God, maybe it's an easy cop-out, but man, it sure makes it simple on going with God said, as opposed to Heather said.
And if it is simple, like I said before, I have made the choice to pick the not simple path.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. I find the challenge of it,
Fun.
It's invigorating, I think.
Okay.
I find it just fascinating trying to answer these questions.
So on the flip side, okay, I love. Let me keep going with the question that.
Yeah, thank you so much to whoever asked that, because that
Go ahead.
sparked
You were gonna say
some
Sometimes
great.
the golden rule is annoying. Like I remember I was going to HEB, and it was in Austin when I lived in Austin. And I was with my little girl, and we were going to HEB, and a homeless dude's like, do you have any money? And I had $5 cash. I don't know why, because I never have cash, but I had $5. And I remember being like, yeah, here. And I gave it to him. I was like, not happy at all. But I was like, that's me. I'd love $5.
Right.
And yeah, it was really annoying. And I still look back at it like, dang, that dude took my last $5 at the time. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but I knew it was the right thing to do.
Good.
And so you kind of don't have a choice. And that's how you know it's the right thing, because it's not easy and it's usually annoying. And so it's probably the right thing to do. But yeah, so I find that the golden rule sometimes it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
And what if I were to tell you, hey, later on I followed that guy. That guy spent your $5 on heroin. He overdosed and died. You would probably be like, well, crud.
I didn't know it at the time.
Sure,
and my heart
you
was good.
and I'm not.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
but the reality, you could say giving homeless people money is actually bad for them, because they're not going to use it to better their life, because it's going to be unstructured. They're irresponsible. That's why they're homeless in the first place, and they're going to create more darkness and depravity that you've now funded. And then you'd be like, oh, crud, is that wrong? I think that's why that becomes difficult, is because every decision isn't always a black and white thing.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's what, to your point, it's like, so how would we know? So who even cares? Let's just do what we want to do for our own self. And that way it makes, at least I can be responsible for me.
Because you could flip side it. Yeah, that $5 could have been his reason not to kill himself that day.
100%. And I have.
So you always got to have good faith.
Absolutely. And I have experienced that exact thing with the homeless people. All right. I want to go back to this question with you, Heather. This is the second one. I don't think Heather answered the challenge you brought up regarding how to reconcile morality when people's views are unreconcilable. I'd love to hear that addressed specifically. I'm not sure if they had that emphasis in it. They'd be like, I'm not sure if they're actually angry or anything. Could be like, I would love to hear that addressed specifically. But I kind of I'd love to hear that addressed specifically.
There's no tone in text.
I like the reader's interpretation of this, definitely.
Also, while it's great to hear Heather's take on God and morality, I would really like to hear her confronted with the claims of Jesus, specifically his resurrection and the credibility of the witnesses. Or it could have been, also, while it's great to hear Heather's take on God and morality, I would really like to hear her confronted with the claims of Jesus, specifically his resurrection and the credibility of the witnesses. All right. I know.
We're getting dangerously close to ASMR here, so.
Yeah. I miss my calling. Stanislavski was my man, and I truly loved him, and acted method was my kind of deal. So anyway, I totally did miss out. All right, sorry. So let's walk that through.
This is a really loaded question.
I don't think she answered the challenge you brought up regarding how to reconcile morality when people's views are unreconcilable. So for example, you're a Jewish person. I think Jewish people should die because I'm a Hitler youth. And you're like, well, I shouldn't die because I want to live. How do you reconcile those two people?
Being the mediator of this. So for one, I want to say, I don't think that there is anything that's unreconcilable. I don't think, the only constant is change, and nothing is forever. And that goes for life is not forever. Your feelings are not forever. Your emotions are not forever.
Your life is not forever.
Your belief is not forever. Everything changes. And so nothing is unreconcilable. Nothing is without the ability to be adjusted or moved or changed, right? So confronted with this really, really daunting one-on-one of Hitler versus the people.
The Jews. It's cool. Just it was a world war. It's fine. You got it.
Or Jeffrey Dahmer. You look tasty. I'm going to eat you. I don't know how, what.
So, none of, I genuinely don't believe that anybody is beyond change, no matter how horrible they are. That does not mean that they are worthy of forgiveness or good or any of that, but that does not mean that they cannot see how what they did was wrong, bad,
Fair enough.
no good. You know what I mean?
Dahmer did repent later on to that end after he ate a lot of people.
Nothing is forever.
Nothing is forever.
Changed his mind.
The problem is, how do you reconcile the morality in the moment? I think that's the part that's difficult. I want to eat you for dinner. You are sitting right here across from me, and it's like this awkward moment of like, that is offensive to me. I should be able to defend myself. Or what's the moral thing to do? How do you know?
I mean, well, for starters, you can go on a podcast about it and argue about it. It's stuff like this. I mean, obviously not to this end,
Sure.
like not in this specific case, but talking it out, trying to understand why in the world somebody would have that opinion in the first place, and then if I don't know, you can deconstruct why they have that thought, you can try and rearrange the thought processes to make them have a different one. You can't do it for everyone. Everybody, like people are going to be, different levels of difficulty to try and find that answer, to try and give that,
Right.
maybe you shouldn't eat me. Just going back to the I don't endorse cannibalism on this, just in case we missed it on the first part.
All right, yeah, okay. I really appreciate everything you're saying here. Okay, but let's get to the second question, because I feel like I'm not going to wrestle you down on the reconcilable or unreconcilable views.
Maybe next week we'll put on some boxing gloves.
Yeah, boom, boom, boom.
beef it up, yeah.
You will succumb to my whims. All right, I would really like to hear her confronted with the claims of Jesus. All right, so here's what Jesus claimed. And so I'm not sure how this is gonna you're gonna be like, oh my, really? Maybe this is gonna blow you away.
We'll see. It's on camera, so this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, so ready? Jesus claimed to be the Son of God.
What?
Yep, I know, crazy. Jesus claimed that he could forgive people their sins that were like their sins that had nothing to do with him. Which would be weird if I said, if you punched Rob and I'm like, I forgive you.
You're like my nose.
And I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. I got you. I forgive you. All right. He also he talked about that one day the people would see him coming on the clouds in majesty, and he would be ruling the world. Okay, so when you see that kind of claim, you either have to go, he's crazy, right? I mean, right? Don't you? I mean, that's a lot to take in. And when he says, I am the truth. What is truth? I am the truth, the way and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. Meaning, I am your ticket to heaven, believing in me. You must eat my flesh and drink my blood, or else have no part of me. Cannibalism. So what do you do with that?
I've met a few people in San Francisco who have said those things, and I thought they were absolutely insane.
Right. So I mean, you can't just go away and be like, maybe Jesus was a good teacher, right? Jesus is either, we are all certifiably insane over here, or Jesus is who he says he is, the Son of God. And what he's meaning by eat my flesh and drink my blood is that your life depends on him. Like your soul feeds on Jesus, like your body feeds on bread or wine. So give me your thought when you're confronted by that. Let's see what happens.
I did not grow up in a household where we name call, so I would never call you crazy for that.
Okay, good. Oh, wow, that was so nice. This is you and the flowers again. Thank you for not calling me crazy. That's so,
a lot of people would.
Yeah.
You don't get anywhere from doing stuff like that. You believe in what you believe in, and that's not crazy to me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think it's gorgeous that you have that, that mindset. But back to the question, or more so my answer. Goodness. Let me try and think here. So, none of these claims, and there was something in this question that said evidence.
Right. Credibility of the witnesses, which would be people who saw Jesus resurrected.
Yeah. So to my standard of evidence, for what I need to believe in a claim, especially a claim as insane as that one. And I mean insane in a good way.
Yeah, okay. All right. Insanely good.
Insane. Just that's just a lot, you know?
Yeah.
In order for me to have to believe that, the evidence that needs to be presented has to be more than what I have been given.
Okay.
Nobody that saw it is alive. There are no photos, there are no videos, obviously, because it happened quite some time ago.
But it could be deep faked. I mean, I think that's the problem with all evidence. It gives you, it doesn't do anything for sure, right? There's no way, I could show you a video and you can say, that's a video of Robert punching that person, but later on we found that was layers of deep fake that we put on, and so you see it and so you believe it because nothing is for sure. I can give you evidence, but I can't prove anything, right?
Can't the book prove it? Like, the stories of Jesus have been around for 2,000 years. I don't know any other stories that have lasted that test of time.
Right.
I don't think that lasting a test of time is proof of reality, though.
Okay.
That just means that it was a really good book.
Okay,
that
how about
a lot of people wanted to read.
Epic of Gilgamesh would probably be dated later or earlier, than the Bible. However, let's just take a look at, if you look at, so the one manuscript that's probably closest in ancient history that we'd all attest to is Homer's Iliad, okay? And the earliest copy we have of that is about 800 years after it was written. And we got like one. With the Bible, you've got like 5,000 copies within the first 200 to 300 years. And that's why it's wild to think about. There's no ancient history that's even close. I mean, there's not even a close second. And so when you see that, you're like, God provided the evidence, not the proof. Because if he gave you the proof, you wouldn't need faith. And I think faith is something that is part of the human experience that you can't gain apart from not having proof, but having evidence, if that makes sense.
I mean, a more reasonable explanation for why the Bible has lasted so long as opposed to other great works, stuff like that.
Sure.
Maybe they just got super lucky. Their society and their civilization didn't collapse due to some random drought, and they just got dealt a really good hand, and one thing led to another, and now I'm sitting in a church talking about it. Like, it just, to me, it makes more sense to just submit to the chaos of the universe and say, yeah, I mean, like that.
Do you have more faith in the randomness?
Which just goes back to, if it's that random, nothing's that random. It's too random to be random, right?
It's easier. That's what I don't get. To me, it's easier to just do that and just say, yeah, like there was a chance that it could have happened. Like, most things are possible, but almost everything is like improbable. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when you go back to it, it doesn't click in my brain that it's easier to just accept that there's a magical dude in the sky that decides everything instead of me just saying, well, it could have happened and something has to happen. So of course, by just straight up luck, that book survived. And I mean, if you base it on longevity, in 1,000 years or 10,000 years, when there's still a whole bunch of like plastic water bottles floating around in the ocean, are people that lived then going to sit back and think, wow, well, they must have like really idolized
water,
like these plastic things. And we don't. We just use them because they're here and they just so happen to last a really long time. That's what I think is going on with the Bible. It just so happened to continue to be passed down. Religion was a huge part of ancient civilizations.
Sure.
Huge. And so, of course, something as gigantic as the Bible and as Christianity, with how widespread it went, it makes sense because it had more opportunities to stick. It had more people to reach out to. It touched more communities. And from that, it got its roots down. That doesn't mean that it happened. That just means that it was significant.
Right. And I guess that's where, if it's significant, because it didn't just like flourish because everyone was like, this is a perfect time. It's like all the Christians were martyred. Every single one, except for John. Like, he just died in exile. But every significant Christian that put their faith in Jesus died a horrific death, which makes you go, would they do it for like a make-believe story? I mean, were they needing a pick-me-up that bad? Like, that's the part you got to really go, like, every person that witnessed Jesus' death, burial, resurrection died a horrific death.
Badly.
And so like, because people will die for all sorts of stuff they believe. People will fly airplanes and trade towers because of what they believe.
Yeah.
But will you die for something you're saying you know to be a lie? Would you die for that? Because all the early disciples said that Jesus rose from the dead and then they got tortured for it. If they were just like, hey guys, we got to keep this thing going. You know, like there's something more here. Jesus was really great and it's worth dying for. But would the lie be worth dying for? Man.
That's a tough sell.
That's a tough sell.
I don't know. See, to me, this is all just a bunch of stuff that a bunch of dudes decided to write down in a book. It sounds mean when I say
No,
it like
it
that.
doesn't sound
but
mean.
So you don't
that's
believe
what
Jesus
it
ever
is.
walked? No?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
There are actual historians outside of the Bible that report Jesus' life.
I think that after 2,000 years, it is extremely reasonable to assume that some stuff got lost in translation,
Okay.
that
I'll
stories
bite on
got
that.
changed. Like there is, I think I said it the first time that I was here. If God himself wants to come down, look me in the face and say, I'm real, the Bible's real,
Yeah.
believe it. That's what it's going to take for me. Anything less than that, no.
Okay.
It's just like the Bible, it's just a book to me. It's just words that human beings wrote down. Human beings are fallible. Human beings are capable of change. Nothing is permanent. I don't know these guys
Right.
that wrote the Bible. My mom doesn't know them. My grandparents don't know them. My great-great-great-grandparents don't know them. It's that old.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when that is the only thing that I have to go off of,
Yeah.
it's not enough.
Okay.
And I would say like you're probably not going to get that, although people have. Like, you know, Gideon met God. Moses met God. Maybe you're one of those. But nobody comes to faith because of all the evidence. They come to faith because God reveals himself to them. And so that's what's going to take for you. And that's why the one prayer I would say for you to pray is like, God, reveal yourself to me, because that's the only thing that can do it. All right, guys, wow. That was a lot. And I want to land the plane here so that keep you coming back for more. I don't know how many times we can have both you guys on, but I do enjoy these conversations. So if you got any questions for our journeying, exploring skeptic,
Sure.
yeah, we would love for you to text them in, because I think Heather would love to answer them, and we can grill her all day long, and she'll just have to keep coming back for more questions. So please give us the questions that you want her to answer. And I'm so grateful for those of you who have texted in. Remember, the number is 737-231-0605. Or go to pastorplek.com. We would love to hear from you. So listen, from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship. See you next time.